Welcome back to the Ref Show with Gary Megson, with Keith Hackett, and we have the Championship. We're going to look at in detail at some of the big games that there were over the weekend in that. Just quickly to wrap up the Premier League, Bobby Madley's game, Crystal Palace 1, Middlesbrough 0, a Palace penalty claim early on there, and MacArthur of Palace, who's fouled. Your view, Keith, he gets booked for simulation.
Oh, I mean, it's a very poor decision.
Yeah.
I really do get concerned about referees who caution for simulation and there's an element of doubt. You know, when you're cautioning somebody for simulation, you're actually saying to that player, you're a cheat. Yeah. He wasn't. He was foul inside the penalty area. It was a clear foul. Penalty kick.
That's galling for any player and manager. I can only imagine how you would have reacted, Gary. Craig Pawson, Watford 1, West Ham 1. Glenn Turner blogged this game on youaretheref.com and just pointed out, he said he lacked stamina near the end, missed some fouls through poor positioning. Also, questionably, maybe he missed a penalty for West Ham there too.
I think he did. I mean, he came out of the blocks, he saw the first one, he was in a good position, gave it. For me, it was spot on. Second one, the second half was as equally as easy, didn't give it. And for me, Madley and Pawson, as international referees, are lacking mobility. They're not fit enough. They don't have a dynamic sprint. And if they want to make progress to be an elite referee in Europe, under the guise of Kalina, they've got to get some pace into their game.
Stuart Atwell's been consistently praised here. Yet again, Everton 2, Sunderland 0, no queries for him. John Moss also, I think, came through his game pretty well. Spurs 4, Stoke 0, even though there was a question over the yellow card for Whelan, whether it could have been red or not. But let's not dwell on that, because let's get into the Championship. This is more Gary's area of, I was going to say expertise, but more of interest because of his fanship of Sheffield Wednesday. Goodness me, I'm surrounded by Sheffield Wednesday fans because Keith is one. I was at Elland Road, Leeds winning a tight game by 1-0. Mike Jones's performance, Keith?
Well, I think he's at his level. I think that's where he should be. I don't think he's a Premier League referee. I think he performed adequately. He tried to let the game flow. There's still that underlying inconsistency. It's his judgment of what's a foul, what's not a foul. There are times when he's giving free kicks when they're not fouled.
Sam Hutchinson's an old-fashioned player. You'd have loved him, Gary. You really would. And now he put in a challenge, a hard challenge. I thought it was he won the ball, but Leeds were claiming a penalty for it. How did you see it?
I think things have they've obviously changed now, because like there was one on I think it was Friday night, Wolves Birmingham. Where Paul Robinson goes in, and he knows he's going to win the tackle. He goes in as hard as he possibly can, which is fine, and he knows that he's going to follow through and catch the player, and he gets sent off. And I know he did, like he lobbed his hand down because the other lad tried to do something, but that's gone now. It's like you've got to tackle without any aggression,
without hitting without contacting the opponent.
Keith will know, a while back that was, sometimes somebody would set themselves up for that. They push it too far, and you're going to get it. And it's like it used to be a case of get the ball and take the man afterwards, and that was fine. That's not allowed now, and it's
the criteria has definitely changed.
It has,
there, Keith.
Well, I mean, we talk about reckless with excessive force. When a player is off the ground 2 feet or 1 foot forward, then he faces the consequences. If at any time or any point there's a contact with the player, that's a red card. And Hutchinson, I love his style of play, and he's a great player for Wednesday. However, he's an accident waiting to happen. He's likely to finish up in the stands more often under the terms of the law and how it's operated. So for me, somebody's got to get to grips with him, the management, to say, look, stay on your feet. There were 2 or 3 where he sails in, and it's a massive risk. If I'm seeing that as a referee, I've now got him under the spotlight. I think referees have already, in their pre-planning and preparation, are aware of him, and they know that he's an accident waiting to happen.
It's very refreshing to see a player like him in many ways, and you really want him to thrive in the game because you don't see too many of them. But the game isn't going to change. The refereeing's not going to change. Gary, he's got to change, hasn't he?
Well, he has, but then if he changes, you ain't got the same player, because his quality is about closing down, filling gaps and making sure you don't get at that back four too easily. And he likes a tackle. And, it's interesting listening to Keith about, preparation, because really, in my view, it shouldn't happen anyway, because you've got your preparation, or we should look out for him and we should look out for him. How do you know? I once had a referee came up to me at Newcastle when I was West Brom's manager, and this was at 1:30, and he says, "I'm going to have my eye on you." He says, "You come out onto that out of that technical area, then we're having no messing about. You go in." So I says, "How do you know where I'm going to stand?" They're refereeing it an hour before. They didn't even know whether I was going to sit in the stand and watch it anyway.
I think preparation is all part of the modern game.
His reputation went before him, surely there, Gary. Gary did have a certain reputation. Let's carry on with the Championship. Peter Banks, up-and-coming referee, Brighton 3, Reading 0, without incident. Now, he's one of the ones that you're championing. Yeah. Tim Robinson, having been involved in an awful incident at Hull, Sheffield Wednesday, with the Fernando Forestieri sending off last year, seems to have recovered well. Barnsley 1, Huddersfield 1. Another game, I think, without spotlighted incident. But let's come to we're going to come to Mike Dean's game in League One in a moment, and also the big East Anglian derby, Norwich Ipswich. But the Aston Villa 1 derby 0 game, which Andy Madley refereed, you had another of these incidents of physical contact between a participant and an official. In this case, it was Villa's Leandro Bacuna who was sent off. Now, he went chest to chest and head to head with a linesman, angrily over a throw-in in that game.
Stupid, isn't it? I mean, the FA have got to get to grips with this all action of how players respond. At the beginning of the season, there was this, we're going to clamp down on dissent and players surrounding referees. It's not happened, really. But my concern is the inconsistency of punishment. I think that somewhere there's got to be a table that says to a player, if you do that, it's a 10-game ban.
Well, look, we had Arsene Wenger, he got 4, Gary. And we've also had the Blackburn player, Hope Akpan, who had another 4 games tacked on to his 3 for the sending off. What's the right level for this sort of offence?
What Keith just said. If you give it, you should pussyfoot about and say it's 3 or 4 games or something like that. It'll keep going, but referees have got to be sacrosanct, and linesmen, you can't touch the referee. I think somebody at the weekend knocked a red card out of a referee's hand, and that's got to be, in my view, give them 12 games. It will stop it, because it's a ridiculous punishment. So you're not playing for a quarter of the season. It will stop it. But if it's 3 or 4, it's I might get away. That might be worth it. But if you do that, give them 12 games. Say that's it. We're not having that in the game, because as I say, referees, officials have got to be sacrosanct. You can't be swiping the card out of somebody's hand.
The FA should take a firm line and be consistent.
The problem here is at junior level, grassroots level, sends out all the wrong messages. We can't have a referee who's stuck in a park somewhere with nobody around him other than players and all that goes on, not having some form of protection. That message has to be sent from the FA.
For their sake. Just briefly back to the Premier League before we round up with the Football League. Martin Atkinson, bang in form. You've got great respect for him. Yeah. Hull 1, Burnley 1, and a great spot for a handball penalty by Michael Keane there. Sean Dyche disputed it, but actually you can see very, very clearly he's got it right.
He's bang in form, Atkinson. He had a couple of seasons ago, he had a real bad patch. We just wondered whether, in fact, he'd come to the end, but do they need him now? And in fact, the PGMOL ought to award him a big star, because he is delivering week in, week out, solid performances. Good on him.
East Anglian derby, no game bigger than that. It finished all square. Gary knows about these games, having played for Norwich at one time. 1-1 between Norwich and Ipswich. Well, I've seen one of these incidents where David McGoldrick of Ipswich is just completely wrestled down by 2 players in the area, and nothing's spotted there. Oliver Langford in the middle, so that's an omission.
I've seen that one. It was a clear penalty. It should have been given. And by the way, of all the games that I refereed, local derbies, that one is the toughest. Make no mistake. You can have your Liverpool, your Manchester derbies. For some unknown reason, I certainly found. I think I've had it a couple of times in my career. Once in a League Cup game, massively tough game.
As fierce as they come.
Oh yeah.
Mike Dean appeared at a big game, huge game in League One. I heard groans from supporters of Sheffield United about this, but it all ended well for their team. A highly deserved 2-0 victory over Bolton. There were only 4 yellow cards in the game. 27,000 watched it. However, I've looked back, and deserved though United's victory was, I've looked back at the penalty for the second goal there, which Phil Parkinson certainly disputed. Samir Carruthers going down. Gary?
Again, it's like, I think it's good that you get a referee of that standard at that level. I think it's a great thing. When you said there's groans, I don't know why there would be. But it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, it's a great big occasion. It's probably the best two teams in that division, two biggest teams in that division. And
he's a good ref.
I think he's a good ref, yeah.
But Keith, the penalty award for the second goal?
I think he got it wrong. And I think he should admit to that. I think sometimes Mike is one of the best referees in the country. And he did have an awful Christmas period. When you lose form as a player, your manager sees it and takes him out and that's what should have happened to Mike. He didn't, and now he's got to recover.
Keith, thanks very much indeed. Gary, pleasure to see you again. Thank you for watching. Do listen to our new podcast as well if you get the opportunity, and we'll be back and see you, and you can hear from us for another Ref Show next week. Bye for now.